Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical hasson. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and I've got a question for you. What do you think they're doing with your DNA? Yes, that DNA that's used to find criminals, the DNA that tells you who you are, that 23andMe kit you sent off. It's not like you were sending them your personal information, or maybe you were. And maybe that personal information isn't important to the world at large, but those databases are being hacked, and they're being hacked for a reason, because someone is looking for you. And that someone is the person of all people you do not want looking for you, and that's Satan himself. Why would Satan be looking for you? Because there is a Y chromosome marker that determines whether or not you are in the biblical line of Aaron. And it's going to take someone in the line of Aaron to call for the return of Jesus, to form the new Sanhedrin with the high priest as the head. And that Y chromosome can be weaponized, and DNA can be weaponized, and your DNA can be weaponized, and Satan will want to take you out. Why? Because if he can take out the line that calls for the Messiah to return, for Jesus' return, then he wins, and he gets this stay of execution. All that contained within the pages of this best-selling biblical thriller, The Codist, authored by me and now out in second edition, available on Amazon Kindle for just $2.99. Get your copy today. I also want you to visit our website, ignitinganation.com, and click on special offers. You're going to see a cover of my latest book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living, Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. I want you to click on that cover. Now, a box is going to come up. We're going to ask you for your email, but we won't send you spam, because spam is not kosher. But we will send you the first chapter of this book. I want to encourage you to order this copy today as we take you on a journey from the natural through the supernatural, from the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Life. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce you to our guest, Bob Hasson, author of The Business of Honor, Restoring the Heart of Business. Bob is a businessman and leadership consultant. His greatest passion is strengthening leaders and their organizations with specific focus on developing sound organizational structure, fiscal responsibility, and dynamic relations on leadership teams. He is both the founder and CEO of R.M. Hasson Painting Contractors. For over 30 years, he's been active as a consultant and board member for churches, ministries, nonprofits, and school boards. Since 2012, he has traveled around the world with Danny Silk as a speaker and consultant for Loving on Purpose. He's been married for 30 years to his wife, Lauren. They have 4 children. You can find out more at businessofhonor.com. Bob Hasson, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's great to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you. Bob, we always like to take a journey backwards before we take a journey to the present. And that journey backwards is kind of an examination of your journey to faith and where you learned and who was the influencer in teaching you about honor.
Well, I came to faith when I was 18 at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, with Chuck Smith, just at the tail end of the Jesus movement. My younger brother took me there on Easter Sunday, and at that time in my life, I had a big afro and went to church in shorts and a Hang Ten t-shirt and flip-flops, and there was thousands of other kids just like me, and I heard the word and went to the altar call. I've had centrally one pastor. His name is Don Williams, who took me under his wing. He's in his 80s now and retired, and I served him, Lord and I served him, and he was a huge impact. But I think I have three father figures in my life, Don Williams being one, my uncle Lou Silverberg, who is a Jewish attorney, and my father-in-law, Willie Hamilton, who I knew I was marrying the right girl, but I didn't know I was going to get just such an amazing father-in-law. And for me, by being able to sit under these men, it really helped me grow over the years.
What was it about them that seemed to minister to you to help you become, listen, you had Jewish influence in your life, you have Jewish relatives, that makes you Jewish. Uh, Here you are with, did you have a Jewish identity growing up? Was there any part of you that was involved with your Jewish grandfather?
We were involved, but we didn't have a Jewish influence. My grandparents went to temple regularly. My mom and dad didn't. So we grew up sort of agnostic, if you will.
So it was your mother's father or your father's father?
Both.
Okay, so you're Jewish from the get-go, and actually you'll find great comfort in this. According to a CBN survey, there's 871,000 American Jews that have at least one parent or grandparent, which is the requirement for citizenship in Israel, that have professed a faith in Jesus as their Messiah. So you and I are in extraordinary company that 22 years ago when I came to faith, that was not, there was maybe 150,000. Now there's statistically, 22 years later, 871,000 across America. Across the world, we're well over 1 million. And of the 14 million Jews in the world, you're talking about a revival of biblical proportion as the scales are falling from the eyes and hearts of Jewish people all around the world. There's over 300 Messianic congregations in Israel alone. I was just there. I've been back now for 8 days, and I go there every year. Now, you're busy, you're a successful, still active CEO of your company, and somehow you and Danny Silk of Bethel Church in Redding, somehow there was in Hebrew, or really in Yiddish, we call it besheret, a divine encounter, a divine meaning, something that was meant to be from a God-influenced standpoint. This was how you connected with Danny Silk. Tell us that story.
My wife had spent a lot of time on the Bethel website and, excuse me, loved Bill Johnson and Chris Valentin and Danny Silk, and especially Danny's message on relationships. So she coordinated a time for us to meet Danny up in Reading, and we did. And a relationship formed there that the only way I can characterize it is supernatural. And now Lauren and I and Danny and Sherry, we all can't imagine a time in life when we weren't in each other's lives.
So the connection is there, you, the families, and everyone connected with this. Now, have you found, you've attended Bethel Church, you visited up there, you and Danny travel around, and what kind of what kind of conferences are you two conducting, or the speaking that you two travel together and do together? What's the nature of all that?
Well, in the early years, Danny has a ministry called Loving on Purpose, and you can find him at lovingonpurpose.com. And he's written 6 books, but one called The Culture of Honor, and the other, which I believe is the best book on relationships that I've ever read, is Keep Your Love On. So the first part of the traveling with him was me just carrying his bags and being a friend. And being with him in all these different foreign countries. He asked me to travel with him, so I said sure. And I thought something like Oregon or Nevada, but when his assistant called me and said, "Here's the trip he wants you to go on," it was Hong Kong. And I've spent the last 40 years building a business and traveling very little to Hawaii on vacation with my family, but never really been on a trip like that. And so somehow I got talked into it with the support of Danny and my wife, and there I was in Hong Kong. And primarily the conferences that we do are related to relationships. Loving on Purpose does has this year summits that they're doing that I'm speaking at. Day 1 is leadership, day 2 is relationship, and day 3 is family. The central message is reducing anxiety and increasing love.
Now, how does this fit hand in glove with your business of honor, restoring the heart of business? And I shared with you offline that in the 40,000 Hebrew words in the Bible, in the Old Testament, 40,000 different Hebrew words, there's no Hebrew word for brain found in the Old Testament. So the heart is where God meets us. The heart is where we speak from. The heart is where we lead from. The heart is where we serve from. It's where we surrender from. It's where we believe in our hearts and profess with our mouth that Yeshua, Jesus, is Lord. How does that fit together with what you're doing with Danny Silk?
Well, I've always believed that relationship is the most important part of business. And so Danny's writings and teachings gave me the language that I had been living. And the way that it fits simply is I'm talking about the softer side of business in the business of honor. We can speak to profit and loss statements, we can speak to balance sheets and cash flow pro formas, but in this book, we're talking about restoring the heart and connections in business relationships. So we believe in these times, we see the sexual scandals, the companies going bankrupt, all the dishonor in business. And we believe that you, as a business person or someone who is working in a company, that we can be profitable in business while being honorable, while doing the right thing. We can be profitable in business while building relationships, understanding our own identity, and moving forward in a vulnerable team environment. So Danny's message of the heart transcends every area of life, in my opinion, especially business. I believe that people in our businesses' greatest asset are people. And if that is our greatest asset, then we need to work on building our relationships in our businesses.
You know, it's interesting as I look at the upcoming workforce that's going to literally take the place of you and I. I'm 66. I went into the corporate world in 1973, stayed in the corporate world for 35 years until I began to serve in ministry. The business of honor and the business of relevance, which is what the millennials, these 20 and 30-year-olds that we're bringing into our companies, into our management programs and raising, are looking for relevance. And relevance has to do with something that's meaningful, that is transformational, and it is a connection point. How do you define honor in business, and what is the biblical model for honor that you found, and how does that fall into developing meaningful relationships?
Well, we define honor two ways. The first is seeing people as God sees them. And if we see people as God sees them, then we are going to honor them because they are children of the King. Mm-hmm. The second way is that in business, we have an ecosystem of relationships, and we think that honor is the gift or the practice of stewarding relationships well. So if we're looking at people the way God sees them, if we're honoring them the way that He honors us, and then if we're putting the priority first to steward relationships well, that's the basic definition in the business of honor. We're responsible to take care of people and our relationships.
So is there a nurturing factor that's connected to honor? Is there a gifting that we need to begin to realize when we, back in the day of good to great, the examination of having the right people on the bus, and then are they on the right seat on the bus, to make sure that the same way in a congregation, if you take a person with the gift of hospitality and you have them in a back room and doing nothing but counting the offering, they're eventually going to leave your congregation because their gifting is not being used, and therefore they're finding them dissatisfied with the church. But it's not about the pastor, it's not about the message, it's not about the congregants, it's about using and developing someone's gifting so that they feel fulfilled. And it works the same way in business, that if you're not, I came out of the sales world where I was told and taught from day one that nothing in this world happens until somebody sells something. That is the beginning of the genesis of all economy, is nothing happens until somebody sells something. And so here I was coming out of college with an education degree, but wound up in a sales profession thinking I was in the most honorable job, that I was the catalyst for the world's economy. And the more I sold, the better the economy did, the more people I put to work. And even in the 70s, I felt relevant and valuable because I could see the impact. I worked for Wrangler Jeans, for Bluebell Incorporated. I could see the people that grew the cotton, the people that manufacture, the people that ship, the people that package, the retailers, all of that, how many people I was impacting, and I felt that it was an honorable profession, not a sleazy, not a, hey, you can't do anything else. I was considered to be doing something honorable, and it was also concurrent with my gifting. In ministry, the same way. How do you see the business of honor addressing the development and finding where people fit, even if it wasn't what they were originally hired for? As you continue to develop them, you have a responsibility to identify their gifting.
Yes, part of being an honoring leader is to understand people. And if they're hired for a certain position, and all of a sudden they're showing giftings somewhere else, it's our responsibility as leaders to be in tune with that. My feeling is that if I'm bent towards the Father God, then when I walk into the office at work, that position will be delivering the heart of the Father to the people that I work with. And so a heart of the Father is to give a fish rather than a stone. The heart of the Father is to give good gifts. And within the framework of direct reports or leadership teams, all the way downstream, it's our job as leaders to identify people and their giftings and try to place them into the place within the teams that they can really do their best work and feel fulfilled.
So honor is more than just integrity. Honor is more than just doing the right thing. Honor is the source of connection, if you will, into like a lamp. If we take every person as a lamp, the lamp's not broken when it's unplugged. It's still a lamp. There's still a good bulb in it, but unless it's plugged in and it's plugged in the right way, it's not going to give off any light. And so your view of this is that we need to connect people to the right source in order for them to shine brightest.
Honor comes down to serving people well. And we don't have a choice. God has honored us. He sent his only Son to this earth to shed his blood for the remission of our sins. He chose us. So we don't have a choice as believers to turn our honor off. whoever God leads into our lives, we're commanded to honor and to love them as He first loved us.
Bob, the application of this to business, we see the models in certain companies that are notably Christian, the Hobby Lobbies, the Chick-fil-A's, the In-N-Out Burgers, there's a couple of others on that list. But when you merge the faith component into a business environment, must it be marketplace evangelism, or should it be what Jesus said, let your light shine, let your light so shine that man would see your good works and bring glory to your Father in heaven? Paul writes, let no unwholesome talk come from your mouth, but only that which is for the uplifting and the encouragement of another, for the benefit of the one you're speaking to, and those within your hearing, within the hearing. So it's not just how I speak to you, it's how I speak to you and how others observe and hear that interaction that determines whether or not I'm actually managing business from an honoring God perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have a few seconds in this segment, so I'm going to go to our commercial break, because when we come back, I want to talk to you about human capital investment versus financial capital investment, and the differences between investing money, investing honor, and it's more than just integrity. Honor goes far beyond just telling the truth and being honest. We're talking.
Yeah, when we get back, I would like to answer your question that you just talked about should we be evangelists or should our light shine?
Wonderful. We're talking to Bob Hasson, author of The Business of Honor, Restoring the Heart of Business. You may work for a company, you may be a manager, you may be the boss, you may have a son or daughter that's working their way through the management ranks right now, and you're looking for them to really take the foundation of faith in which they were raised upon and how to apply that, not only for the satisfaction of those who are reporting to them or their coworkers, but also for their own personal satisfaction and continual 24-hour contact with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through the model given to us through Jesus. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion with Bob Hasson. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The Teaching Archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, Prophecy in the News videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our one-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Bob Hasson, author of The Business of Honor, Restoring the Heart of Business. Bob, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Bob, before we went to break, I had kind of tossed you a little bit of a softball, if you will, which was about marketplace evangelism. Do we actually, aside from being the hands and feet, faith without works is death, but where does the sharing of faith come into that, and how do we express that in a safe environment that makes it so that we're not looking at some of the models out there as a condition of employment? I'm sure that your staff and your company, with painters and blue-collar workers within the organization, as well as a sales team and a project management team and all that, because you do a lot of commercial buildings, as you shared with me, the interior of new construction. You're having to work with contractors, talk the language, time everything. You have to have project management systems. So you have a hierarchy within your corporation of different skill levels, but yet you continue to use this business of honor, the heart of business, which is a heart for the Lord, not a heart for the world. How do you find that balance, and what place does marketplace ministry have in restoring the heart of business to a business of honor?
Well, my business was young, and I was a young believer. As my wife and I wrote strategic business plans, we had scriptures to the glory of God, and these were internal strategic documents, but I had a Christian fish on my early cards. But as the Lord continued to bless the business and it grew over the years, He spoke to me and basically told me this, that corporations are in business to make a profit. And one of the best ways to make a profit is to be a servant. If we're a service company, or if other companies are developing products or widgets, we're going to strive to be the best service company or product company. So in my business, I've never had a sales force, which I know is anathema to you, but our sales force simply is our project teams completing jobs on time and on budget and safely. And when we do that, the secret sauce simply is showing up, charging what we've said we're going to charge, and then cleaning up at the end. It's not rocket science. But again, we're bent towards the heart of the Father as people who are serving. So our strategic documents don't have scriptures anymore. Our people aren't out evangelizing on construction sites. But what we are doing is portraying our culture, which is one of care and concern, which is one of connection, out to all the other subcontractors and contractors on these jobs. And the jobs we're working for Fortune 500, Fortune 50 general contractors on projects that are in the billions of dollars total contract worth. And so our customers, our other subcontractors, our employees are seeing a culture where they're saying, what makes you guys so different? Why are your people willing to work overtime, double time, weekends? Because our culture is one to serve the king first, and then to serve the customer.
So, Bob, there's two foundational principles you've just shared with me that both are linked to Scripture. First of all, you shall know them by their fruit. And the second one is in Romans 11, where it says the gift of salvation was given to the Gentiles to provoke Israel to envy. But it's also given to all to provoke others to ask that question.
Right.
Now, in most cases, when I'm asked that question, what makes you so different than others, and especially in the Jewish community or when I'm in Israel, I tell them, listen, I'll tell you, but you really don't want to know.
Right.
I'll give you the answer, but you really don't want to. Are you sure you really want to know? Because I'll tell you, but are you sure you really want to know? And they go, and of course that just provokes them and piques them. And they say, well, of course I want to know. Now what? I said, well, I want to give you another opportunity now. I'll tell you, but I don't really think you really want to know. And they say, no, I do want to know. And then I tell them, sometimes they'll say to me, you're right. I didn't really want to know. Say, look, I warned you, but you insisted. So don't get upset with me. All right? I warned you. And so they may go screaming off, they may curse me, they may do whatever, but nevertheless, there's this certain integrity, this certain warning that I've given that you really, and I do that with everybody. I say, if you really want to know, don't ask me if you really don't want to know. Don't ask a Jewish person if you don't want the answer. All right? And the answer is going to be direct, it's going to be unabashed, unapologetic, it's not going to be politically correct. You knew that when I walked in the door, and you knew I was an ordained Messianic rabbi and an ordained Baptist minister. You knew what you were getting, the full package of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you can get an answer. You knew what I was. And the reason I don't just put rabbi, which most people do, or Messianic rabbi, is because predominantly the world doesn't even understand the concept of what a Messianic rabbi is. So I went to the reverend, which is what I'm ordained as a reverend and a rabbi. So I combine them that says, look, you knew what I was when you booked me to speak at your church. You knew what I was when you booked me to speak at your conference. You knew what I was when you brought me into your company. Why are you now surprised that I'm giving you the full gospel picture from the Old Testament to the New Testament? You asked me to do a wedding. What makes you think I'm not going to do a Messianic wedding that combines the tradition of Judaism with the traditions of Christianity and merge them to be a more meaningful encounter for this couple that I've done premarital counseling with, and they have a full expectation. And the audience, the guests, their jaws drop because they've never heard such things. This is what you and I are supposed to be doing, is provoking them to envy, not provoking them. And that's the secret.
So where honor takes place in business is, for example, we're in the midst of a complex negotiation for an extended delay claim on a large project in Northern California. And these meetings can be contentious.
Yes.
So before I go to those meetings, I am prayed up. I've asked the Father to go before me. I've asked him to move on the hearts of the people that we're negotiating with. And I have met with my team and said, listen, we are going to give facts and we are not going to get emotional. And in these meetings, many times the other side will try to provoke, as you're saying, to emotion. But what we hear time and time again is we've never had a negotiation meeting like this where issues are so emotional and there's so many dollars on the line, and you guys remain calm. You guys remained respectful. You guys remained to the issues. So when I see people trying to provoke reactions in us to get us off message, that's where I'm relying on the Father to continue to bring peace into the meetings, into our hearts. And it's a countercultural way of dealing with conflict and resolution. I've never, in 40 years of business, actually been to trial. We've had plenty of mediations, plenty of arbitrations, plenty of depositions. But at the end of the day, maintaining a bent heart towards the Father and a culture of actually wanting the best resolution for not only our company, but the other side also, it has kept us out of court.
And that's exactly what the model in the Bible is, to settle your matters on the way to court. Otherwise, you may be handed over to the judge, and the judge may throw you into jail when you may think you're in the right. You've got every answer. You've got all the but the judge is just a man, and it's better to handle them in a godly manner. In your book, you talk about investment. Someone would think this is a business book. You're talking about capital. You're talking about money, but you're really talking about what you call relational investment, and you break it into three areas: telling the truth, receiving well, and serving well. What does that actually look like as we apply that to business?
Well, telling the truth is a vulnerable thing. If I walk into my team and I say, I am scared, I am worried, and I need your help, I'm telling them the truth. I'm not hiding, and I'm giving our team an opportunity to use their strengths that I've hired them for to work out an issue. If I'm receiving well, and I've delegated authority to people, then I'm looking honorably to take honest feedback and communication about the things that I'm doing. I want input. I want feedback from my peers and from my employees and from my friends. Sort of something that I think in my life is, if I'm in a relationship with you, Eric, and the Lord reveals or gives me something about you, if I don't ask that, who will? We're brothers, and so I'm not in a relationship with you to be superficial.
Right.
I'm in a relationship with you to sharpen you and for you to sharpen me. And then the third piece is serving well. And it's simply meeting people's needs. when I go into someone's office and their mom has fallen, or their wife has had a problem, or their kids are having issues, my job is to say, well, how can I serve you?
Hmm.
Not have them come to me and say, I need to take forced PTO. For me to say to them, you should go home. Why are you here? Go take care of your family and come back. In this day and age, we have phones, we have computers, we have Wi-Fi, we have all kinds of ways to communicate. And so being out of the office these days, as the younger generation is showing us, is okay.
We have more connection points now than ever before. I remember when I first went to work for AT&T in management. Once I moved up to a district manager, they installed a phone in my car, and so I had this big box in the trunk, and I
Right.
had this big mount in the center console. And then we went to the bag phones, and so I was toting a bag phone and a 35-pound Toshiba laptop. Okay? So I would walk into a client's meeting with this, it was like made of a brick,
Right.
35-pound laptop that had a little screen about that big, and we were supposed to be the technology giant, the technology leader, and a big phone bag over my shoulder so that I could answer the bag phone if it rang. And we began this process of connection. That was the whole model that we had, but it was so superficial. Uh, if you didn't have the skills to read something upside down on your client's desk, then you weren't. You
I
weren't
have that skill.
right. And I have that skill. You develop that. So you read everything on their desk. When you signed in, if you didn't flip the page back to see which one of your competitors had been there before you, if you didn't go back a couple of pages, then you weren't very savvy. You hadn't figured out that you have clues all along the way as to what's going on. You see the low-cost leader was there 5 hours before you. You go, okay, so price is going to come up, all right? I'm going to be pitching value while this other guy's pitching price, all right? So now I get all this ammunition, and we stay connected. I have had a policy for 45 years that I answer every email. And let me assure you, I get between 300 and 400 emails a day. But I answer every one of them. I return every single phone call. Right? There is nobody that is less or more important except for my Jewish mother. She trumps it all, and I'm pro-life. The life I save might be my own. So,
That's right.
that's just something, a model that you got to maintain. In this economy, which is robust and great, it hasn't always been over the course of your so many years in business. Over 30 years, you've seen the good times and you've seen the really bad times. In the good times, it's easy to be a benevolent leader. It's so easy to be a compassionate leader. It's easy to be a joyful communicator with your clients, your customers, and have a smile on your face because the cash flow is great, your cash flow positive, it's all good. But it's not in the good times when our faith is supposed to shine. It's actually in the hard times. It's actually in the difficult times. It's when you're having to figure out, do I mortgage the house in order to make payroll? How many paychecks can I actually go without so that I can pay all of my teams? So how did you go through that, and did you find those kind of business wilderness experiences challenging, refining, or because of who you were and the model you created, was that the way that you didn't change the direction of the wind, but you adjusted your sails so that you could survive those times?
Well, first of all, I don't understand how, well, anyone, but especially business people making multi-billion dollar decisions can do this without the strength of knowing Jesus. That gives me incredible peace. The second thing is, my wife is a brilliant woman, And she gave me incredible strength that I write about in the book. I do write about these wilderness experiences and where they took not only the business and the fear and the shame associated with it, but where it took our marriage. Um, the way that I tried to weather those storms, and we've been through 3 recessions, obviously the latest in 2008, um, is that I try to communicate. So with my team, yes, this is what the projections look like. Yes, this is what the economy is doing. Yes, this is where the global economy looks like it's going. But here's how we are combating it. Here's how we are trimming our sails. Here's how we are cutting costs. Here's the strategy that we're going to use going forward. And am I nervous? Yeah. Am I scared? Yes. But I am going to do everything in my power to continue to make payroll and continue to keep this business moving forward. And you are an important part of this business, and you're coming with me. So it's nervous. There's a lot of negative indicators in the markets. There's a lot of bad news within our company, but we are going to weather those by being together. And the way that I've done that is by just being vulnerable and communicating with them. We've had 3-4 major rounds of major cutbacks, of paring down, of making very hard decisions. But we've made them, and we've gotten to the place where we've weathered each one of these storms.
Is transparency then part of the heart of honor?
I believe vulnerability is. And out of vulnerability, transparency comes. So the answer to your question is yes. But as leaders, by us practicing vulnerability and even intimacy, Danny writes, "Into me you see" is a definition for intimacy. So when I'm nervous, when I'm anxious, I am turning to the team at work that I've trusted. When I'm anxious at home, I'm turning to my wife. When I'm anxious about all of it, my wife, my marriage, and my business, I'm turning to the friends that God has given me. And I'm not isolating. I'm not compartmentalizing. I'm not hiding.
Bob, you've consulted for and spoken to other business leaders and shared with them this model of the business of honor, restoring the heart of business. Have you seen and experienced the turnaround, the change in dynamic, not just the bottom line profitability, but the bottom line accountability, the bottom line relation, the transformation of applying these very strong biblical principles to creating an environment that's going to bring about, you're still growing corn, you just want a bigger harvest. You're still painting buildings, you just want a bigger harvest. You're still planting grapes, you still want a bigger harvest. So how are you seeing this impact the businesses you've consulted for?
So this is my passion. My business is mature now, and I've got this fantastic management team who are running day-to-day operations, and I'm very comfortable with it. My passion is the consulting piece, where over 40 years of experience, both with the Lord and in the strategic, I kind of operate in this intersection between the strategic and the kingdom of heaven. So when I'm consulting with pastors, nonprofit leaders, they're out concerned about changing the world, and as they should be. And strategy isn't a big part of how they normally think. Mm-hmm. When I'm consulting with business leaders, strategy is what they normally think about, but the kingdom of heaven somehow is isolated. So we're bringing these things together. And yes, I've had so many incredible testimonies from practical miracles. We all get excited when somebody obviously gets healed from the dead, raised from the dead. Their eyesight comes back, their legs grow. I haven't been fortunate enough to see those kind of miracles. The miracles I have seen are the practical miracles when we concentrated on our cash flow, when we concentrated on cost cutting, when we concentrated on the sales department going out and being that first step to bring business in so that a business could continue, and seeing the effect, the net effect of all those strategies take place and transform a business. And having people having wins together, giving them a new focus of moving forward. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Bob, it sounds to me like you're a turnaround specialist, but it's not the kind of turnaround that we would normally think of a business that's failing and turning it around. You're in the turnaround business of changing the hearts of the fathers, the business leaders, to their children, which are their families, their business associates, their employees. And this new thing that God is doing. And if you think about it, you spend more time at work than you do with your spouse over the collection of a period of a week. There's intimate relationships that do not cross the line of what we would consider to be inappropriate intimacy, but there is a godly intimacy that where your love for your brother. When I'm in Israel, my guide has been with me for so many years. We are like brothers. We kiss each other, greet your brother with a holy kiss every morning and every night in front of 48 or 50 people on a bus. They see us embrace as true brothers. I don't have a brother. I have two sisters. They see us embrace this way because this is the love of the Lord flowing through two people that have a spiritually intimate relationship, a connection that is unbreakable. And that is exactly the message that you're bringing to businesses, the business of honor, relationship, and restoring the heart of business. We've been talking with Bob Hasson, author of the newly released book, The Business of Honor, Restoring the Heart of Business. As I said, he's a turnaround specialist. Turn your eyes towards heaven and find a way to use compassion, intimate relationship capital of investing integrity and honor into your business, and you too will see a kingdom turnaround in not only the attitudes of your people, but the change will begin with you, business leaders. A great book as a gift item for anybody in your life that's thinking about becoming a business leader or a ministry leader, because there's a business component to all ministry. As I have to manage this ministry, so do others in the same fashion. Great handbook, great guide for understanding the heart of the Father towards business. He mentions God mentions money more times in the Bible than he does prayer, and this goes into stewardship and honoring God's people. Bob Hasson, thank you so much for sharing with us here on Revealing the Truth.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored that you did.
Thank you so much. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.